Direct Connection is made by MPT to serve all of our diverse communities and is made possible by the generous support of our members. Thank you. Live from Maryland Public Television, this is Direct Connection with Jeff Salkin.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for tuning in for Direct Connection. Coming up, what is the state of the art in diabetes treatment? We are taking your calls with expert advice later in the program. First tonight, the no good, rotten, miserable campaign season is almost over. It has, however, stressed out millions of Americans. Joining us to talk about it is Lynn Bufka, Associate Executive Director of Practice Research and Policy at the American Psychological Association. Dr. Bufka, thank you for being with us.
Thank you for having me.
Let's talk about a survey that you've recently conducted that found that 50-some% of people find this election to be a significant source of stress.
When we did our survey back in August, we asked people about a wide variety of sources of stress, and even in August, people were saying that the election cycle is a somewhat or very significant source of stress. So I can only imagine how many people would tell us that now.
Is it always like this at this point in an election cycle, do you think?
You know, it's hard to say. We haven't asked this question over the years, so I don't have data from our surveys to look at that. This year, it's a close race. The discourse has been pretty vitriolic. There's been a lot of strong support or strong opposition to both candidates. So it seems that this year we're probably particularly seeing heightened stress from the part of the electorate.
And one thing we know from political polls is that looking back over many decades, we've never had two candidates this unpopular. When you broke out your survey along political lines, who's more stressed out, the Democrats, the Republicans, the independents?
You know, we didn't ask about people who consider themselves independents, but people who are registered as Democrats or registered as Republicans, they were just as likely to say that the election was a source of stress. So, and it was even more so than sort of the people who are invested in the election seem to be slightly more likely to say that it's been pretty stressful for them.
And you found that people who use social media were reporting to be a little bit more stressed.
Definitely. That was a significant difference. People who use social media were reporting that the election cycle is a source of stress, even more so than people who don't use social media. And we think that's probably because with social media, it's hard to get away from it. If your Facebook friends or you're seeing posts on Twitter about the election, people often use those things as a means to distract themselves, and now they can't distract themselves from what has been a significant source of stress. Plus, the commentary on social media has been fairly negative. People are a lot less filtered on social media and the kinds of things that they'll say. They won't say the same things to you face to face that they might say posting a comment on Facebook or otherwise.
So it's a little harsher than maybe it used to be, and maybe it's a little bit more polarized. When people are in their own orbits online, it's a little bit of an echo chamber. And increasingly in the traditional media, if somebody turns on the conservative cable channel, the liberal cable channel, you're not really hearing a mix of views.
That's absolutely true, and I think that's actually a problem. It's very hard for us to see the shared commonalities when we always associate with one group and don't hear the points of views of others. We're much more likely to seek out information that reinforces what we already think and believe, and it makes it much harder for us to hear the points of view of others who don't share our same perspectives. Yet underneath it all, most of us in this country would say we support the same things. We want a good life for our families. We want to have jobs that are meaningful and that pay us so that we can live the kind of life we'd like to lead. We'd like to see good schools, so that there's a lot of common values, but when we circulate in our own arenas and don't talk to people who have different points of view, it's very hard to find those commonalities.
Let me remind our viewers, if you have a point of view about the stress of this campaign season, have a question For the guest, please give us a call at the number on the screen. You could also tweet your questions. The Twitter address is @MPT News. So let's talk about how to deal with this. Give me some tips for de-stressing.
Well, at this point, I would imagine that most people know who they're going to vote for, or perhaps have already voted. So it probably makes sense to just turn off the news, stay away from the election coverage at the very least. Go to other sources of information, a show like this, or other kinds of content that's not going to remind you that there is a very controversial election that's going to be unfolding tomorrow. I'm sure most of us are going to be very eager to see what the results are, but constantly checking for the results is not going to help us feel more comfortable or relaxed. So take time to do things that are enjoyable, whether it's spending time with family or friends, whether it's exercising. Those are all good things to do to ease stress that you're feeling in the short term. So you want to limit your exposure to what's stressing you out, and you want to do things to take care of yourself when you're feeling particularly stressed.
One thing that your group, the American Psychological Association, advised was to avoid catastrophizing. First off, is that a word? And second, what's it mean?
Psychologists use the word catastrophizing a lot when we talk to each other. What that means is don't imagine the worst and presume that the worst is going to happen. We don't know what's going to happen. Someone will be elected president, and that person has a particular agenda they'd like to carry forward. But in order to do so, they have to have the support of other parts of our government. It's not that the person who becomes president immediately gets to do everything he or she wants to do. So it's important, if you're concerned about one presidential candidate's potential agenda for the future of our country, to not think that these things will happen immediately and it will all be horrible and bad things will happen to our economy or to education or to the life that I know. We don't know what will happen. We know that they have particular points of view, but we don't really know how that's going to play out. And imagining the worst only makes us feel bad, whether it's about the election or anything else that we're facing. So as soon as we find we jump to, this would be the worst thing in the world, this is the most horrible thing that's about to happen, who gets elected does not mean certain events automatically follow. And that's the same thing for most events in our life. We don't want to go to the catastrophe as the end point. Bad things can happen, certainly, but the likelihood of bad things happening is much smaller than we usually think, and usually don't stem just from one event, such as the outcome of an election.
We know that on Wednesday morning, out of all these stressed out people, half of them are going to be happy and half of them are going to be unhappy. Is there like a grieving process if you're so invested in an outcome and it doesn't happen? You know, your sports team loses. I mean, that's a less significant thing, obviously, but is there a period of adjustment?
Absolutely. We'll all have to come to some terms with the outcome of the election, whether it's for the candidate we favored or it's for another candidate. We need to accept it. In our country, we have centuries of peaceful transitions of power because we have figured out how to accept the results of an election, to say we've all had our opportunity to voice our vote, to cast our ballots, and we have agreed as a society that the outcome of the election is the outcome of the election, and then we figure out how to move on. Of course, there's going to be some anger, some disappointment, some sadness for some individuals. Other individuals are likely to be very jubilant, and some individuals will just be glad it's over and will feel some relief. Wherever you are in that, there may be some time to just accept, here's what the outcome is. What do I need to do next? And once you've sort of gotten past that, I think there's a couple of things to think about. For those who supported the winner, probably making some extra efforts to reach out to those you know who supported the one who did not win will be important. That's how we are gracious winners, and we need to be able to be gracious losers. The winners can reach out and try to cross that divide and find those commonalities for what do we share and how are we going to work together as a nation. That would be a great first step for those who supported the winning candidate, and for those who support the losing candidate to look at our history of government and how does that function, and what can I do to get involved, whether it's at the local or state or national level, to support policies and an agenda that I believe in even if the candidate I supported wasn't elected. Those are positive steps that a person can take to have an effect in their local or larger community.
Lynn Bufka with the American Psychological Association, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
We appreciate it. Coming up tonight, preventing and treating diabetes. We'll be right back.
The MPT app puts our programs right at your fingertips, so you can choose when to watch, what to watch, wherever you want to watch it. Download it now.
There is one stage that is the Met and Carnegie Hall. It is the Kennedy Center and a club in Austin. It is closer than any seat in the house, no matter where you call home. PBS, the great American stage that fits in every living room. Supporting your PBS station brings the arts home.
This is a box that showed you a world beyond your own. It was just a box, but the world has changed, and so have we. And now the box can be almost any size or shape. And you decide what you want to explore. Anytime, any place. Break out of the box with PBS.
My child who's watching Super Y, and it said, what letter makes the sound R? And my 2-year-old is jumping up and down going, R, R, R. I love that. I wish I knew the genius that came up with Dinosaur Train. I mean, what little boy especially doesn't like dinosaurs and trains, and to put them together in one show? My family does without a lot of stuff, but I would be horrified if we had to do without PBS.
Please support MPT.
Joining us for this week's Your Health segment is Dr. Kashif Munir, Medical Director of the University of Maryland Center for Diabetes and Endocrinology at the UMMC Midtown campus, also Assistant Professor of Medicine at the University of Maryland School of Medicine. Doctor, thank you for being with us.
Thanks for having me, Jeff.
So many people have diabetes and deal with it well. How large a problem is it?
Yeah, so that's a good question. So in the United States now, they say almost 30 million people have diabetes. So if you count the whole population, that's about 1 in 11 people. But most people, I think, if they just think about family, friends, colleagues, almost everyone knows somebody with diabetes or themselves has diabetes.
Not to mention people who have diabetes and don't know they have it.
That's right. So they say about 1/3 of people actually walking around might have diabetes and don't even know it. And another almost 3 times as many people that have diabetes have something called prediabetes.
Those people who have it and don't know it, what symptoms might they be experiencing that they ought to be more attuned to?
Right. So sometimes it's pretty hard to even tell. But a lot of the symptoms, so I can demonstrate, drinking too much water.
Being thirsty all the time?
So being thirsty all the time, urinating more than usual. Sometimes people will get up at night and have to, keep using the bathroom, and that's something that that should alarm you, or at least make you aware that you should get tested. And sometimes it's more subtle. You could just be a little more tired than usual, or a little more run down, and you're not able to do the things that you usually were able to do.
Is there an urgency in getting that diagnosis? Many people might want to delay having a diagnosis. Can you live for a long time without knowing about it?
Right. So there is an urgency in that treating diabetes can really delay the complications. And diabetes, really, it's a disease of blood vessels. It affects the small blood vessels in your body, like the back of the eye, or to the kidneys, or to the nerve endings. And then it can affect big blood vessels, like the blood vessels in your heart, or going to your brain, and cause things like heart attacks and strokes. So that sounds very scary, but the good news is if you do catch it early and you treat the risk factors, not just the blood sugar, but also things like your cholesterol, your blood pressure, you can really prevent a lot of these complications. So it is important to diagnose early and treat aggressively early.
What does diagnosing diabetes consist of? Is it a simple blood test?
Mm-hmm. So there are different ways to diagnose it. One of the easiest ways is a fasting blood sugar. So there's just different cutoffs. It's kind of a continuum. So there's normal blood sugar, And then after that, we have what's called prediabetes. So that's the blood sugar between 100 and 125. And then 126 and higher is considered diabetes. There are also other tests. There's a test called a hemoglobin A1C, which many people might have heard of. That gives you a more longer-term assessment of how your diabetes might be doing, or it can also diagnose diabetes. And then we can do something called a glucose tolerance test, where we actually give you some glucose and then measure your blood sugar at 1 hour and 2 hours, and that also can help us diagnose it. So there's several different ways to diagnose it.
Let me remind our viewers, if you have a question about diabetes, treatment, how to prevent it, give us a call. The number's up on the screen. You can also tweet your questions. The Twitter address is @MPT News. Type 1 diabetes, type 2 diabetes, how different are they?
Right, so that's the big question. So the two main types that we know about are type 1 and type 2. Type 1 is less common. It's maybe 5 to 10% of the population. And that just consists of your body. Actually, it's an autoimmune condition, meaning your immune system attacks the cells that make insulin, the beta cells in the pancreas. And so those cells slowly are destroyed, and you just can't make insulin, so you need to treat that with insulin. We used to call it, or we used to refer to it as juvenile onset diabetes, but now we understand that people that are older also can get this type 1 type autoimmune reaction. And then type 2 is the more prevalent type of diabetes. So that's maybe 90 to 95% of people. And that has two what we call core defects. So there's what's called insulin resistance, and that's when your body is still making insulin. So unlike type 1, you might still be making insulin. Sometimes you're actually making a lot of insulin, but your body just cannot respond to it the way it should. And then the second is that the pancreatic cells that make insulin slowly do fail as well.
How much of the incidence of diabetes is tied to genetics, your family history, predisposition versus environmental factors?
Right. So both factors are very important, and this gets back to even the types of diabetes. And so there are type 1 and type 2 are the major types, but then we're learning a lot more about these genetic forms of diabetes that are passed on through the family, and they don't really fall into type 1 or type 2. They're due to certain defects in what we call transcription factors, which had to do with the enzymes that control your blood sugar, and so those can also cause diabetes. But in general, genetics plays a big part, especially in type 2 diabetes. So most of the time, if you have type 2, you can identify a relative, whether it be a parent or a grandparent, uncle, aunt, that has also type 2 diabetes. But there's two kind of hits to it. Then there's the environmental factor as well. So what we know is that if you're predisposed to diabetes, if you do really well with your diet and exercise and really aggressive with lifestyle changes, you can actually prevent it from occurring.
I've heard of people who lost a lot of weight and then no longer had diabetes.
Mm-hmm. So that also can happen. So with diabetes, we say nothing's permanent. It's a dynamic disease. You can lose a lot of weight either through just very strict diet and exercise, and even losing about 10% of your weight. So if you kind of put that in kind of more identifiable terms, if you weigh 200, if you lose about 20 pounds.
Yeah, I guess I've heard about it in the context of somebody who weighed 300.
Right. Or 300 and lose 30 pounds, even that can actually get you off a lot of medications. But then if you lose even more weight, you can revert back to what we call normal glycemia or normal blood sugars. More often than not, that happens after surgery. So a lot of patients or people now are undergoing surgery for weight loss, and a lot of these people have diabetes. And so after that surgery, a lot of people will go into what we call remission, or their diabetes kind of goes away and they can maintain normal blood sugars and don't need any medication any longer.
Let's grab a phone call. Baltimore City, this is Don. Don, thanks for the call. Go ahead.
Yes, I was concerned about how old you have to be to have diabetes, and if you're young, like 4 or 5, or in a child's age, could it be treated then instead of waiting till people get old enough to verify it?
Thank you very much.
Yeah, so that's a good question. So the age, again, it depends on the type of diabetes. So type 1 is more common in younger children. So I think he said the age of 5. But we are seeing type 2 diabetes, which we used to call adult onset. We're seeing it in teenagers a lot now. And so a lot of it has to do with environmental factors, the weight gain, the stronger genetics that seem to be creeping up. And so there's really no age limit per se. But and I think the big question is how to prevent it. So can we stop it from happening? So if you know you're going to get it at 30, can we just stop it at the age of 5? And so again, it comes back to hard work. It's diet and exercise, and so that's the one tried and true treatment that we know will delay or prevent the onset of diabetes in a lot of people.
What's happening with medical treatment? Obviously, we don't have a silver bullet pill yet, but what do we have? What's on the horizon?
Yeah, so there's a lot of things. There's a lot of new drug classes for type 2 diabetes. There are medicines that work that also actually cause weight loss and improve your blood glucose, whereas before a lot of the treatments actually cause weight gain. And then I think one of the most exciting things that has happened over the last few years, one is that there are newer monitoring devices that kind of check your sugar all day long. And so they're put in under the skin, and it'll give you a blood glucose estimate every 5 minutes. And with that, you can couple it with a insulin pump now. And so one of the biggest things on the horizon, which just got approved by the FDA or the Food and Drug Administration recently, is that there's what we call a closed loop. So meaning the sensor will tell the pump what the sugar is and how to adjust the insulin, so the patient can kind of manage things a little bit more hands-off.
That's kind of an artificial pancreas.
Like an artificial pancreas. So it's an early iteration of that, and so there's going to be a little bit of human element still involved, but we're moving towards that, and we're at, in the future, we really envision that people will be able to manage this just with this artificial system.
Baltimore County, this is David. David, thank you for calling. Go ahead.
Yeah, Doc, I just wanted to say I've been diabetic/pre-diabetic for 20 years, and I discovered, I went on it with this diabetic study through Hopkins, and they hooked up a meter to me, and this meter showed me what my sugar levels were in a graph every 15 minutes, and I realized what I was eating. For instance, I was eating shredded wheat in the morning with 0 sugar, but it had a lot of carbs. And in the morning, that was throwing my carbs, way up above 200, and or 250 or something. And so after that, I immediately realized what I was eating was throwing my sugar levels real high. So I immediately lost, not immediately, but within 6 months, I lost 33 pounds just going on a low-carb diet, and my sugar levels are now normal. I'm no longer pre-diabetic or diabetic, whatever.
David, yeah, glad you called. Thank you very much. And in the direction you're talking with constant monitoring, maybe it becomes an app at some point.
Yeah, so that's actually one of the companies that has these monitors. You can actually hook it up to your phone, and it'll deliver the data right to your phone. So that's kind of the future. But I think David makes a very important point that a lot of times we just look at sugar and not realizing that carbohydrates, it's the same thing. And so, for example, if you eat a piece of white bread, it's just like eating a teaspoon of sugar. It's exactly the same in terms of causing your blood glucose to rise. So I think the point is that when you look at labels, a lot of these things are sometimes marketing almost gimmicks, and so you have to really learn how to read a label and look a little bit deeper and see that the carbohydrates is really what matters, or matters most in terms of affecting blood sugars.
Let's go out to Caroline County. This is Susan. Thank you for the call. Go ahead.
Yes, I wanted to know how effective the ketogenic diet is that you see so much in the press now for combating diabetes.
Thank you very much.
Right.
What does that mean?
So ketogenic diet, there's a lot of different diets that are reported to be ketogenic, and those are usually low carbohydrate diets. So your body uses carbohydrates, which convert to glucose as a fuel. And so if you eat really low carbohydrates, then you start to oxidize fat or burn fat, basically. And so those, one of the byproducts of that is you make ketones. And so the thought is these ketones might suppress appetite, and so this is one of the big fads that's out there now. It actually does work for a lot of people, meaning that eating very low carb can actually be very effective in lowering blood sugars. And so I think the issue is that we often get or want to pin one diet and this is the golden diet for everyone, but it doesn't work that way. Different people respond differently to different diets, and so what we do is we work with people, we try to individualize our goals and our treatment plans with people, so we can really tailor the therapy to that person. And so maybe a very low carb diet works for person X, but not for person Y. But it is something that does work for people.
Squeeze in one more call from Page County, Virginia. This is Robert. Robert, thanks for the call. Go ahead.
I'm a type 1 diabetic. I've been diabetic from age 35 up to present, which is about 29 years now. And I just wonder if they got any new type insulins and that could help my diabetes. I'm what they call classified as a high-low diabetic. One down lay high, and the next one lows.
Robert, we'll get you an answer on the air. Best of luck.
Yeah, so I think this is where this artificial pancreas system really could make a big difference. So I think part of this, there are newer insulins out that are more what we call physiologic, meaning they kind of mimic the body's insulin production much more tightly. There are insulin pumps that help you do that. And then now with this sensor pump combination, for these people that are very labile or have very high blood sugars and very low blood sugars, this is really going to help that type of person in trying to even things out. So I think technology is on the way to hopefully help a lot of patients just like that.
Very good. Dr. Kashif Munir is Medical Director of the University of Maryland Center for Diabetes and Endocrinology. Sir, thank you for being with us.
Thank you, Jeff.
Appreciate it. Thursday at this time on Your Money and Business, why it's getting easier to send and receive money from your digital device. Join us for that Thursday at 7:30, and then we're back Friday with State Circle and the latest on Maryland politics. Now, for all of us at MPT, I'm Jeff Salkin. Thanks for watching Direct Connection, and have a good night.
Your health segments are a co-production of Maryland Public Television and the University of Maryland Medical System.
This program was made by MPT to serve all of our diverse communities.